Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Acro's Credential Chats. We are joined this week by a very special guest. We have Jason Tyszko with us. He is the Senior Vice President at the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation and a founding member of the T3 Innovation Network that we've spoken about, I believe, before on this show. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Noah. Pleasure to be here.
Jason, just as a starting place, you're with the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation. For ACRO members who are wondering, where's the sort of organic connect between, with the work that Jason is leading in stewarding and the work that we're doing, in the student records and enrollment management spaces. What's kind of been the journey that got you and ACRO connected?
So back in 2018, when we created the T3 Innovation Network, we were really interested in a variety of data interoperability conversations that were cross-domain. So we were very much looking at, what's education doing, both K-12 and higher ed, in terms of producing data, sharing data, storing data, what are the various use cases associated with that data. And in particular, we're very interested in a lot of the work happening on college campuses around extending the transcript. And we were starting to talk in the business community about how are we not only better ingesting data about individuals' experiences and skill sets and processing it as data more accurately to assess fit for job or career advancement opportunity, but we're also very interested in figuring out how are we documenting and validating all of the learning happening on the job, whether that's a work-based learning experience or an employment experience. So as we started to get a little bit deeper in this space, we really looked to higher ed and ACRO in particular, saying these folks have been doing a lot of work supported by Lumina Foundation and others. Let's meet them where they're at, but now let's start bridging into the conversation. So I remember a while back, in the very early days, I was invited to speak at an ACRO event in Indianapolis. And I remember going in front of the registrars and mission officers and saying, hey, the business community is here and here's why. And I said, imagine a future where employers are going to be like educators, HR is going to be like registrars, and what we now call LERs are going to be like transcripts. But we need to make sure that we're able to better understand all of the learning and experience happening in these campuses, happening within courses, happening within campus experiences. But we also need to be producing better data about all of the learning happening in the workplace. And at the end of the day, it's about the individual learner or worker. And all this needs to come back to them. It's not about us, it's about them. So, how are we empowering individuals with all of this data about their experiences and enabling them to use it to do things like apply for jobs or other use cases? So, that was the spirit of T3, but it was really kind of leveraging all of the great work and leadership that ACRO had led around expanding that, extending that transcript. That's really what brought us in, and it's been a terrific collaboration ever since.
Yeah, I think that that's sort of we tend to just have themes that are very just student focused, from that registrar kind of lens, and I think that that's probably definitely going to resonate with this audience. That from that learner, earner, worker kind of very similar, centering them in this effort from your side of the house as well, and also really cool to see just how you in the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation have been paying attention to and really involved in this space since kind of back in the day when we were talking about things like the extended transcript and even before CLR was a thing, and that you all really see this as being something important. And I'm hearing the data interoperability piece. Another theme that we've really had, especially over the last year, is people talking about these notions of just what next. What the role of the transcript and learning records has been really well defined, and nobody's questioning that. And we're starting to see cases where it's going to start evolving to where these things get used in new and different ways that are really important. And I wonder if that's a good segue. I know that you and the chamber are really involved with ACRO in not just the LER accelerator, but now this infuse phase of a project that people are going to start hearing about probably around when this interview gets published. So maybe you could just share, from your perspective, what's going on with Infuse and what this audience needs to know about it.
Yeah, so in a prior phase of T3, there have been a lot of talk about these new types of records and lots of different names for them, but it's a digital record of learning and experience. And as we were talking about how to kind of produce these records, empower someone with this data, have them move it from one digital container or wallet to another. We're really talking about like new things being created. These are new records. And the challenge that the Chamber Foundation had for the T3 network was, okay, look, if we're going to produce volume, and you need volume to get vendors and other technologies to take notice and to make changes, we need voluminous data. So how are we going to scale quickly? Because if we're kind of doing this in a bite-sized pilot by pilot manner, creating new records, a lot of HR systems, for example, aren't going to change to be able to essentially process those as data. So one of the big picture ideas was, well, what if we can convert past experience into skills-based records? So I have what does it mean for me? What does it mean for you, Noah? Like you've had past experiences, employment-wise, education-wise, uh, maybe you have a military background, maybe you have a community service background, but it's like all of that is rich experiences that has not been documented. So how do we convert a lot of those experiences into structured data? So create a record that's based on a data standard, and then have tools like artificial intelligence help with converting those experiences into skills that you can self-validate and change. So you can say, this is right, this is wrong, I need to make a change here, it's right, but you're bringing your past forward and making it relevant. You could always add new validated records after, but how do we make your past relevant? And that makes LERs then available to all of us because we all have some kind of past experience. What's very interesting about the Infuse project is it's focusing in on a very important use case. Because while I'm interested in converting past military experience, employment experience, community experience, one of the big bites of the apple is past higher education experience. So for individuals who have gone to a public or private university or a community college or been involved in some type of post-secondary education, we can't leave that on the table. And yes, they have the transcript, and that's not going away. It's a very important document for a very specific use case or two. But what we need now is that what's the missing piece? How do I convert my past course experiences into some kind of structured skills data that I can use to take action for, like putting together a machine actionable resume to apply for a job? So that's the big exercise is we've had all of these college graduates with all of this experience. Can we do a mass conversion of those higher ed experiences for folks already in the workforce and then produce that data for their use? And Infuse is zeroing in on that use case. How do we do this at scale for colleges and universities while others in the T3 network are trying to bring other people's past forward, whether it's military, employment, or community service?
And I guess would it be, a big stretch to think that this is very much connected to what a lot of us are probably seeing if we're in one of the 24 states or District of Columbia where they're mandating by legislation or governor executive order some form of skills-based hiring and eliminating degree requirements that, some of this work maybe sinks into those efforts not being a threat to the degree, but actually an opportunity through this the word you used a word, but to me, I almost heard you saying interpretation of interpreting, what's happening to be able to take it from the language that we might currently do it in to a language that's going to make sense to employers that also can be validated as, yeah, that actually did happen on our campus.
Yes, yes. I don't think this is reinventing the wheel. It's like you said, it's coming up with a set of enabling technologies to interpret what these past experiences were like for future use. And like this is a great way to say, hey, for those individuals who came out of a post-secondary education experience, they've got skills. It just hasn't been documented or communicated in that way. But with a innovation like Infuse, which is synergistic with our Experience U project, this would allow someone to more easily convert and interpret that data without putting all of this new legwork into going back and producing new transcripts and things like that. Now, there is a question of the quality of the data. Is it interpreting it accurately? And that's what needs to be tested. Will an individual be able to go and say, yes, this looks accurate? Will we be able to kind of take a course description and convert it into a skills-based record that a professor can then validate? Like there's all kinds of ways that we can test for quality. But for right now, for a lot of people, they don't need like another kind of legal document like a transcript as much as I just need to know a little bit about the skills I've obtained and competencies I've achieved so I can go take action in the labor market. So we're trying to beat the resume, which isn't a high bar. So we just need a little better data about what my experiences were like, because I'm sure a lot of folks in the higher ed community have this experience where, a student goes through a course or goes through an entire degree program and they say, well, what did you learn? They go, I don't know, I don't learn anything. Or I didn't get anything out of that course. Well, obviously it's not true. But if you're helping them to say, we're not putting the onus on you to interpret all of your course experiences into a language of skills and competencies, but giving you a start for how to describe what you did and what you learned in that course, that's a huge help for individuals who are trying to put together a resume for the first time or for that second job. Like, we need to make it easier. We need to be more transparent with the types of learning outcomes that are coming out of these experiences, so folks have what they need to take action. And for a lot of graduates coming out, one of the things they need to do is, I need to have a real good chance at applying for a job and getting my career started. So this would really help with those kind of post-secondary outcomes, because you're giving the experience they've had to them in a format that they can take effective action in the labor market.
Yeah, I love that transparency word. I think that that was my one word for 2023, was this transparency, because I think that what you're describing just gets us to a place of really just radical transparency of what our credentials are credentialing. And that in this moment of there being all these conversations of, post-secondary education and attainment being under an existential threat, I hear you describing things where, because of that transparency, because of that interpretation that is valid and trusted, we actually go to a place of privileging potentially post-secondary attainment more than ever, because instead of people having to trust, well, they have a certificate or they have a degree, therefore, hopefully they'd be good at this job. It actually goes more granular into, within that degree, they acquired these skills and competencies that are exactly what we're looking for when we're hiring for this job.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned like skills based hiring. I mean, if you're using like education level attainment and like degree requirements, we could go into like, the history of that and why we're in the situation we're in. But, a lot of these credentials are black boxes. What it tells me is you completed a program of study that says something about you, but it doesn't really tell me a lot about what's going on. If you give me a college transcript, what am I looking at? I'm looking for verification that, the degree is valid. I'm not going through your course history and understanding all of the things you necessarily learn and could do. But if you're able to provide a new form of documentation, we could do it more easily through the use of technology to say, oh, here's not only the verification that I do have this credential, but by the way, here are all the skill sets and competencies I bring to the table based upon my individual experience on one or more campuses, because it was this collection of courses, this collection of campus experiences that make me who I am. And I could bring other data because I did do that internship, or I did work on a project team on a real world messy problem. And I've had these co-curricular experiences that are now also being documented and validated by employers and others. And when someone has data about their experiences from all of these different settings, including my core education experiences, I can now combine that data into new types of products like resumes or an online profile to really be more transparent about all of the unique capabilities I bring to the table. And right now, it's like we're all trying to do that through a blank Word document or a template or going on to like a LinkedIn or something. But if we're helping people better access the learning and experience they already have and making it easier for them to be more transparent around what it is and who they want to share it with, that's what we call learner and worker empowerment in the T3 Innovation Network. We should make that easier for folks, because right now they got to jump through a lot of hurdles. And then the back end, if you're looking at that, you're trying to figure out, as someone looking at someone's data, what's true and what's not. And there's not a lot, and some of it, it's a sniff test kind of thing, or I'll verify later. But in addition to just rendering more information out there, it's going to improve the quality and trust around that information as well. This is going to be more validated information that I think over time will build trust that, I believe what I'm seeing.
I think all of this really speaks to just the strength of, what ACRO members do every day, just valid, trusted data, standardized data. And I think, you kind of have me inspired about just where it goes, that this does not necessarily change what we've done, but is an expansion of what we do and how we do it, such that it really empowers the learners in new ways, that we go from, you know, learning records that are kind of reporting out on what things have done to almost going into a space of storytelling and narrating who they are as learners and achievers, so that they can, use that to better know more about themselves when they look in the mirror, the awesomeness they should see, as well as accessing, the paths that are going to help them access their successful futures.
Absolutely. I mean, this is getting at that spirit of lifelong and life-wide learning, and just saying, we've done a really good job for good reasons at creating some official documentation
Mm.
around certain pieces of that. But now we actually have the technology that can scale in a very affordable, if not free way, to really start documenting all of this. Now, again, it's going to lead to questions. Imagine one use case where it's like, I got all of these great experiences and now I'm going back to college and I want prior learning credit. Well, the higher ed community is going to have a lot of questions about, what counts, what's not, what's quality, and we're already having those debates. So it's going to add more to the debate, but it's a good problem to have, because I'd rather someone come with a lot of data and validation that then has to get vetted than not showing up with enough of it.
Jason, you have me so jazzed. I feel like I could pepper you with questions for the next 16 hours and not get tired of it, but I do want to respect your 15 minutes and just thank you. I know that, you're known as the workforce guy, but I think what I've really seen here today is, you're also the learning records guy and have been for a long time. So just thank you so much for joining us and for all you do with the T3 Innovation Network in the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation to collaborate with ACRO on Infuse and all the past and future projects.
Oh, thank you. And it's a real pleasure to work with ACRO in this community. We've learned so much from your experience and your leadership, and just everything we're doing is kind of building on the foundation you all laid. And we're looking forward to another successful year of collaboration.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I guess one final plug as people are logging off, we will link in the show notes too. You can join the T3 Innovation Network for free and participate in all of their events, as well as we can remind folks who may have participated. I just was reminded when you mentioned Experience U that you collaborated with ACRO in a lot of offices providing examples of some of our structured data. So maybe we'll be able to track down that original release to remind people about it and maybe find ways of who maybe participated to shout them out as well. But again, Jason, thank you so much for your time, and everybody have a badge worthy week.
Thank you.